So based on, as we move from forecasting, we're now getting into sort of measuring effectiveness. And the human resource function can contribute to a large number of different things. First of all, they contribute to productivity, to customer service and quality, and the bottom line, financial contributions. So our goal here is figuring out the HR function and particularly HR activities, what impact they have on helping the company. So we can HR has a huge impact on productivity, obviously through restructuring the organization, through making sure HR activities align with the divisional goals and the corporate goals for the business. We redesign work in order to streamline it to improve productivity and the use of technology. And we can outsource as need be so that we can use outside vendors that we might be able to use at a decreased cost than having an in-house staff. And so we're involved with making decisions to maximize the productivity of our company and minimize our expenses. When we're developing metrics, when we're developing measures of our effectiveness, there's a lot of different things that we need to take into account. Number one, we need to be able to collect accurate data. So we need to make sure that the data that we are getting is a good reflection of performance. We need to make sure that the measures we're using are linked to strategic and organizational and operational objectives. It goes back to the mission and vision and the strategies of the company. Why are we measuring it if it doesn't affect the bottom line based on the mission and vision of the company? The calculations need to be fairly easy to understand, and we would need to be able to explain them and be able to show why these numbers make sense. The measures also need to provide information that our executives want and are going to use. We need to be able to make comparisons to say this is how our results are compared to our competitors, externally, internally. The measurement needs to drive then HR activities, the way that we manage our people, the way that we evaluate them, the way that we pay them, the way that we train them. All these things are going to inform what our HR practices are going to be. So our next slide, where it says metrics, is looking at from different perspectives, different types of metrics that we can use. So from a strategic perspective, we might look at change management capabilities of the company. From an operational perspective, we might want to look at employee tenure or the time to fill vacancies. From a financial perspective, we might want to look at turnover costs. From a customer service perspective, we want to look at how the company is perceived as an employer, and how easy it is for us to attract and retain people, given that. We also might want to look at how human resource management is viewed by the employees, or how the company internally is viewed by the employees. Our next slide is looking at, again, some key metrics in some key areas. So we can take, what we did in the previous slide, and this focuses on some that I think are much more concrete. HR expenses versus a per full-time employee, which means, for each a full-time equivalent employee, which means you could have 2 part-time people to equal 1 full-time person, but what are our expenses for hiring, retaining, paying, etc. And so we can break down each of these numbers. If you have any questions on what any of these measures mean, we can talk about those in class, but each of these I think are fairly straightforward. They all represent certain aspects of metrics that we might use to then go back and make changes to HR practices. Changes we might make in staffing, changes we might make in compensation, changes we might make in development and management of our day-to-day employees, changes in training and things like that. We need to take that into account. Our last slide also gets into measures of strategic HR effectiveness. Return on investment clearly is a big one. Economic value added is looking at the operating profit of the firm after the cost of capital is reduced or deducted. And then another area is what we call the HR balanced scorecard, where we're looking not just at financials, but we're looking at internal business processes, customer service and customer reputation, and a learning orientation and growth orientation. All 4 of these need to be balanced and focused on in order for the company to have good strategic performance. And so, if we make sure that we have an impact on the financials, but we also make sure that our business processes are strong, that our customer service orientation, both internal and external, is stable, and that learning and growth is done well. This is the focus that we need to take. So this summarizes the lecture. Please bring questions to class, and I look forward to seeing you in our next session.